My name is Oliver Gottschalg. I'm Associate Professor in the Strategy Department at HEC here in Paris, specializing on research topics around private equity. And I've been founding several years ago the advisory firm PERACS, which brings standardized track record analytics services to private equity investors. I've researched this asset class for over a decade, and I've seen a strong trend, increasing trend towards the higher demand for better information and transparency from the limited partners. So as much as the investment environment out there is changing from day to day and continues to be very challenging, I think at the same time there are very important processes going on that will call for fundamental change in the nature in which limited partners and general partners will exchange information, and that'll lead to substantially greater efficiencies in the entire private equity industry. I think players such as eFront play a rather crucial role in this evolution because they allow limited partners and general partners to have a substantially better handle on their data, know how to store and retrieve information, and how to share crucial information when this information is necessary. I think there's a big misconception because when people talk about transparency in private equity, investors are often concerned that information will get into hands of competitors or of the general public. I think that's not so much the question, but it's crucial that investors in private equity have the right type of reliable information and the right analysis ready on this information to make accurate investment decisions. eFront services, both to limited partners and general partners, are playing a crucial role in this context. And in particular, I think the more recent efforts around PEVARA are going to prove fundamental in revolutionizing the availability of benchmarking data in the private equity industry. I think the change is going to be drastic. I recall starting my first working relationships with a number of limited partners who have become research partners over the year of HEC. And I remember being in the same city, in the same fancy office towers, and seeing very highly trained junior analysts taking the same information from paper documents that general partners provide, put them into a software tool manually, and then trying to make some kind of analysis. That was a decade ago, and I asked myself, how can an industry of that size and importance still be so inefficient? The industry is definitely making progress. And again, their software solutions such as eFront can play a very important role. And I see going forward this interaction to be much more efficient in focusing on the right information and an effective use of this information. Where today a lot of LP-GP interaction is on identifying the right data to look at and then trying to question this data and validate this data, I think private equity will drastically benefit from standardization, not only in terms of the format of exchange data, but also of the right metrics and measures to look at. This is an area where I believe both software solutions such as eFront will play a key role, but also my own commercial efforts in the area and trying to bring standardized analytics that will capture in an objective fashion both the risk profile, the key performance and key benchmark performance, but also strategic indicators for private equity fund managers will make things much more efficient. In an ideal world, LP-GP communication should not be about how did you calculate performance and how did you present a certain number, but it should take the accuracy and the relevance of the provided numbers for granted, and then the discussion should be about how one can create value going forward based on those numbers. I think if you look at it today, and this is actually one of my recent clients that I'm quoting here, he mentioned there's roughly 2 to 3 trillion-ish in capital in private equity. There are roughly 50 trillion investable capital somewhere outside private equity. The game changer for private equity will be to what extent the asset class qualifies itself to attract some pockets of this money. Because you can easily imagine if private equity is able to prove itself as being reliable, sufficiently data-driven, and mature enough to attract other pockets of money around the world, a few more percentages of this 50 trillion could easily double the size of this asset class. Many investors look at private equity today, they shy away because they perceive numbers to be unreliable, benchmarks to be ambiguous, performance measures to be questionable. To the extent that there is improvement on the reliability of these measures and on the availability of data in an efficient fashion, that may change and that may indeed provide a huge additional inflow of capital to the asset class.